Halloween was a week ago, it's always fun to have a selection of Mad and Harry top 10 recommendations to make your to-be-read pile more robust. And if there's anyone who knows Mad and Harry, aside from, Rubius Hagrid, it's this month's guest presenter. Hi, I'm your host, Garrett K. Jones, and this month I have Kalvin Ellis, author of In the Hills Above the Gristmill, to provide this month's top 10 recommendations list. Hey, welcome to my channel. If you're a returning viewer, glad to have you back. And if you are new, there are so many things to check out. This channel has it all. Top 10 lists like this video, author interviews, creative writing tips, as well as a live video at the end of the month. There are a few ways that you can become a channel supporter, but I will talk about those things at the end of the video. In the meantime, what I would like to do is I'd like to bring to your attention No Shave November. No Shave November is a fundraiser movement that is partnered with the American Cancer Society, helping raise money for cancer awareness and support, specifically cancers that impact men. I'm signed up to kick cancer in the ass, and I'm aiming to raise $250 for Testicular Cancer Society. I'm growing my beard, and whoever makes the largest donation gets to decide what I do with the beard at the end of the month. Now, if you'd like to donate, please go ahead and check out the link down in the video description. I would love to have your support in this campaign. I connected with our guest host earlier this year. Kalvin is a mystery and suspense writer from Colorado. His first book, In the Hills Above the Gristmill, is a terrific read. It follows a young YouTuber in search of the paranormal, getting caught up in a mystery thriller centered on the existence of a Sasquatch. It's definitely worth having in your personal library. It's in mine, for sure. But maybe you might like some of the titles on today's list. With that said, take it away, Kalvin.
Hey Garrett, thanks for having me back on your channel. So this is the 10 books I would recommend to anyone. Number 1, On Writing. On Writing is one of my all-time favorite books, if not my all-time favorite book. It's nonfiction, and it's by Stephen King. If you get the audiobook, King reads it himself, and it's kind of like having that really cool uncle just talk to you and tell you about his life and tell you about his job, and that's super cool. So I'm sure a lot of the folks that watch this channel or who know who I am are into writing. So yeah, it's a good book for anybody. But even if you're not into writing, it's just a really good. The beginning is a memoir. That's why it's called On Writing, a memoir of the craft, because it's what it is. It's a little bit of a memoir of Stephen King's life, which is pretty fascinating. So find out how the master of horror became the master of horror, as well as learning a little bit about writing. So highly recommend it. Incredibly engaging, endlessly quotable. I read it probably at least once a year, if not 2 or 3 times a year. It's one of those audiobooks actually that I just throw on and listen to. Anytime I'm not quite sure what I want to listen to, or anytime I'm struggling with getting words on the page. So it just kind of jars everything loose for me, because he says things in there that just really resonate with me. So yeah, audiobook is great, but there's so many different editions of that book, different covers and stuff, but they're all great. So there was a pretty recent one that just came out a year or 2 ago that actually has a foreword by his son, Joe Hill. So yeah, check it out. Very good book. So book number 2 is also a Stephen King book, but this one's fiction. And my second choice for books that I would recommend is It by Stephen King. An amazing tome of horror. just really captures what it's like to be a child and to be afraid. The movies are really good, especially the more recent ones. The made-for-TV movies were just okay. Though Tim Curry, iconic, one of the greatest performances, in my opinion, ever put to screen. So Bill Skarsgård did an amazing job and more accurate depiction of the killer clown, more accurate to the book, that is. So a great job there. But both adaptations of Pennywise were great. But the book is something much better, and because it doesn't necessarily just make Pennywise the bad guy, it makes Pennywise the bad guy by manipulating the fear of the children, which is obviously what happens in the movies. But in the book, it's a deeper dive into the things that actually terrify us. So it becomes less of just a supernatural and paranormal horror, and it becomes a bit of a psychological horror. We see that a lot in the movies with Bev, whereas the other stuff's kind of a physical horror, but Bev's is more psychological. So, yeah, if you're into a really long, iconic, nostalgic look at horror, then you can't go wrong with it. But be prepared, because it is a bit of a roller coaster. There are some parts that did not age well, but that's kind of true with a lot of Stephen King's work. And I don't mean that disparagingly. It's just he came up writing a different type of horror fiction, and some of that didn't age well. So book 3 is a difficult one for me to recommend. It is probably, if you asked me, I mean, maybe even still, what my favorite book of all time is, you're probably going to get one of 4 answers. On Writing, It, Ready Player One, which is also on my list, but not this one, or Ender's Game, which comes in at number 3 for most recommended book. And the reason it's hard for me to recommend is because Orson Scott Card is a piece of crap of a human being. So we don't agree on anything, Orson and I. And so it's hard for me to recommend his book because I don't want you to go buy it. I don't want you to go out and pick up a copy of Ender's Game. You want to go pick up any of the Stephen King books? Do it. Any other book on this list? Go buy it. Support those authors. But Ender's Game is a tough book for me to say go buy because I don't want any money going into the estate of Orson Scott Card. Instead, if you're compelled to buy it, and it is an amazing read and a great coming-of-age story and a great story about being really good at something and how people can manipulate you for being good at something and how friends are important and how even if you feel like you're not somebody, you are. So if you feel like that book sounds good to you, go buy it from a used bookstore. So book number 4 is a classic, but a very special book to me. Book number 4 on my list is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So Atticus Finch, when I was little, was the guy that I wanted to be growing up. I read Stephen King books, and I thought, well, these are the people that I am now. I felt very connected to Bill Denborough, first person I ever connected with in a book, which in turn made Bev Marsh the first person I ever had a crush on, in or out of a book. But Atticus Finch was the guy that I wanted to grow up to be. So much so that I wanted to name my daughter, Maddie, my youngest daughter, pictured here and here. I wanted to name her Scout because she is Atticus's daughter in To Kill a Mockingbird. And To Kill a Mockingbird is all about civil rights and justice. Yeah, trying to protect other people that society had kind of forgot about. I read that book and it honestly changed my life. So I live my life in a way to kind of combat that. And so if you're watching this and you're interested in helping me combat that, you can buy a book from my website. I know it's weird slinging books and a thing like this, especially in this conversation, but 20% of all of the money that I make off of my website gets donated to organizations that help support underserved and underrecognized communities. So yeah, and you know what? This month, in honor of this show and my friend Garrett, I will commit to donating 75% of all proceeds from my website sales to those same organizations. So feel good knowing that if you purchase a book from my website this month, 75% of those proceeds will go to those organizations. Next book on the list is not gonna make me all all nostalgic and teary-eyed. Though it is good. It's very good, but it is The Martian by Andy Weir. I love science, but my brain just doesn't hold on to like scientific terms and stuff like that. I can grasp science. I just don't have the memory and the capacity to really hold on to that stuff. I love dissecting things, not like actually dissecting. I don't want to cut open animals or anything like that, but dissecting problems and kind of getting to the heart of them. Andy Weir does such a great job of breaking down the science, not dumbing down the science, mind you. He goes full on with that, and Project Hail Mary, which almost made this list in place of this book, but because I've read this book so many times, I feel like I can recommend it more than I can Project Hail Mary, but I recommend them both. I'm cheating. I'm throwing two into one. Either one. There's another book in there from Andy Weir that you can skip if you want to, but those two are really good. But The Martian, funny, brilliant, at times heartbreaking, but very, very good. So highly recommend The Martian by Andy Weir. Next on my list is another gut punch of a book, but it is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It's tough. It's a tough read, but I think only the second time in my life that I was ever reading a book and I dropped the book because something just caught me off guard or shocked me so much. I had to drop the book. The first time was in chapter 19 of The Dark Tower, the last book in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. If you know chapter 19 and you know what happens in chapter 19, I didn't drop the book, I threw the book. Anyway, we're not talking about Dark Tower. We're talking about The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It'll leave you cold and hungry and sad and just depressed. It's a rough book to get through in both its writing style and its story, but it is really, really, really good and should definitely be experienced to fans of the horror genre or drama or, anything really, because it's just such a captivating and just sad book about the after the apocalypse, a dystopian future. So yeah, check out The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It'll make you cold and hungry. Here we go with another Stephen King book. I know you're probably like, stop, Kalvin, that's enough. But I love Stephen King, and I think there's a different Stephen King book for everybody. And Bag of Bones is one of my favorites. So if you can check out Bag of Bones by Stephen King, great ghost story mixed with a lot of just horrible people. So I think one of the things Stephen King does best is he mixes the paranormal and supernatural with the horrors of humanity as well. So this book does that really, really well. All right, so number 8, and I mentioned it earlier, Ready Player One by Ernie Cline. I feel like this book was written for me. There are a few things that I absolutely love in this life, and 80s stuff fills up most of them. So Back to the Future is one of my all-time favorite things. If you follow me on social media, you probably saw that my daughter and I dressed up for Halloween as she was Maddie McFly and I was Doc Brown, but I'm a little larger than Christopher Lloyd. So anyway, this book, Ready Player One, just taps into all of that. It just took a Steven Spielberg filled syringe and just pumped it right into my arm. So filled with nostalgia. Is the writing the greatest? It's good. It's good writing. But it just really hits all of the nostalgia. Anyway, if you were alive in the 80s or 90s, this book is probably going to have some stuff that really hits home for you. The movie was okay. The movie was good, but not great. But the book was fantastic. It's just a fun ride. And if you're into audiobooks, Will Wheaton narrates the audiobook. So, yeah. Many of you might not have heard of this book, but it's called It's a Bird by Stephen T. Siegel. Steve, as I know him, is a comic book artist and a writer, comic book writer, creator. Steve does everything. So you might not know him by name. You may have heard of some of the work he's done. He's one of the creators of Ben 10 and Big Hero 6, and he's written for every major comic book character, including that guy, which is how I met him. But he's one of the most influential people in my entire life, and honestly changed my life for the better. So, and I am honored and proud to call him my friend. So he wrote a book called It's a Bird, and that book changed the direction of my life because I picked it up after watching Steve do a Superman panel for the 75th anniversary of Superman at Denver Comic Con a couple years ago. And I picked up this book called It's a Bird that he wrote off of his table. I bought everything on his table. Him and Joe Kelly were there. And I read this book, and it's about him not wanting to write Superman. I read it. It's about him not wanting to write Superman because of the connection that he made to Superman and someone in his family who had Huntington's disease. And it was the first time I had ever heard of anyone else outside of my family being related to somebody with Huntington's. And I know what Huntington's can do to a family. So I connected immediately with Steve, and we became friends. And he's become a bit of a mentor to me. Gave me my first paid writing gig in TV, so very special to me. But the book itself is amazing. It talks about like the ups and downs of having to do something that is at the same time terrifying and exhilarating, but also knowing when to step in and say, I don't know if this is right for me, and being able to weigh those decisions. So very special book to me, very special person to me. So if you get a chance to check out It's a Bird, or any of Steve's work, it's great.
Before going any further with the video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon for notifications on new videos. You can select notifications for all videos, or you can select notifications based on your preferences. If you're watching on your phone, be sure to update those settings inside the app itself to get the most out of your viewing experience.
In the number 10 spot for books I would recommend is actually an entire series of books, and it's the Dark Tower series. But I would only recommend it to people that have read almost all of Stephen King's work, so it's kind of a specialty one. It's not something I would recommend to everyone. Sure, start out and read Gunslinger. It's kind of fun. I've recommended it to people. They start Gunslinger, and then as they go through Stephen King's work, they read more and more of the books, because as you get farther into the books, you realize that this series ties all of Stephen King's work together, including Stephen King himself. So they're great books. The first book is not King's best work, but he wrote it when he was younger, and it took him decades to finish the set because he stopped in the middle of it. And you can tell when he stopped. But just a brilliant series that makes you, it is a masterclass in character building. And he builds these characters over a series of books, and you fall in love with them, deeply in love with them, because of the things that they go through and the effect they have on each other. And it makes you feel like family, because with family, you love them, but sometimes you hate them at the same time. And this book makes you do that. Like, there are times when you just despise the behavior of some of the characters, but because you have fallen in love with them, you want them to get better, rather than just being like, oh, well, just why wouldn't they just kill that character or whatever, because they're family now. So yeah, very good story, epic. Yeah, I would put it up against Lord of the Rings in the terms of it being like just this long storied epic that just goes on, and it's a quest. It's beautiful. I love it. That's it. Those are the 10 books, or a few more than 10, that I would recommend to anybody. And thanks, Garrett. I appreciate it. You guys can check me out online, social media. Go to my website, kalvinellis.com. That's Kalvin with a K, ellis.com, and you can check out my book. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and all the links are on my website, kalvinellis.com. Thanks.
A big thank you to Kalvin Ellis for helping out with this month's top 10 list. You can find his interview in the author awareness playlist, and you can follow him through social media. All links are going to be found down in the video description below. However, make sure to pick up a copy of In the Hills Above the Gristmill. 70% of all proceeds go to help the charity that Cal mentioned earlier. Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and if you're in the mood to do so, you can support this channel on Patreon through one of 3 affordable support plans. Patrons get access to blooper reels, behind-the-scenes videos, and much more. You can also buy sweet merch from my store on Teespring that you can rep very easily on social media by tagging me at GKJ_publishing and using the hashtag 5kingdomsmerch. Or you can sign up for the free poster giveaway that I'm doing. I'll announce the winner for that when I hit 200 YouTube subscribers. I'll see you back here next week for Author Awareness as I interview Adam Perry, author of All Possible Orbits. The vlog of the 5 Kingdoms is filmed without the use of a live audience at Skyrocket Studios in Hanford, California. We can't do what we do without your help, so please make sure to subscribe by clicking the button that's above my head, and make sure to watch and share the videos over here to my left. Have a great week.